Welcome back, everyone, to the Sales Leaders Playbook Podcast. Today, we have an awesome guest. This is Mr. Paul Griffin. He's the CEO and co-founder of the Sales Factory, which is a leading B2B revenue agency, and a 3-time Globe and Mail Canada's top growing companies honoree, recently named the G2 Winter 2026 Leader in Lead Generation and Outsourced Sales. Number 1 in Canada, number 2 in globally, by the way. So he's building the next evolution of go-to-market by combining human sales execution with AI-driven systems through the Sales Factory's proprietary platform, Pitch Pilot. So while many companies are replacing sales teams with AI, Paul advocates for a human plus tech plus systems approach and is building the infrastructure to support it. So Paul is also a recognized voice on outbound strategy, pipeline conversion, and the future of revenue teams, speaking at events such as Futurepreneur and Tech TO. So thank you so much,
thanks
Paul,
for having me,
for
Justine.
joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So as we know, this is a sales podcast, and we have lots of juicy questions for you today. But why don't you take us back to the beginning? What was the story of how you got started, and what was your very first
Great. Yeah.
real
Well, we
sale?
started in 2018. Me and my co-founder, we actually met at an event. And at the time we were kind of speaking together about the issues with going to events, the problems with meeting, buyers. Obviously the big challenge with events is you want to go there to meet potential buyers for your product or service, but it's really hard to navigate who to talk to or where to go. So the original plan or the original idea of the business was for us to go create dinners at events where we would bring your ideal customer profile to those dinners, and then you would obviously have a chance to speak to them on a topic and have a chance to sell to them. So we did that at the very beginning and found the operations of managing events was a little bit arduous. Also, we were doing a lot of things just to keep the lights on at the beginning days, a lot of consulting to startups, operations, marketing, things like that. And quickly we became focused mostly on the business development side of things. When we spoke to our customers in those early days, a lot of them were really just focused on trying to figure out how to grow. So we really started focusing more and more on the business development growth side of things. And basically we did a lot of outreach for the events that we were doing previously. And we had kind of built a little bit of muscle memory around how to do outreach cold. So we kind of just focused on that. But instead of booking people into dinners at events, we focused on booking people into discovery meetings, demos, things like that. And that really became kind of a product offering for us. Once we kind of figured that out, it was probably the end of 2019. We renamed ourselves. We were called Event Patio at the beginning, and we changed our name to the Sales Factory, which was a little bit more aligned with what we were doing, what we are doing today. And that was kind of the initial move. And then I'd say in about December 2019, we started selling that version of the Sales Factory. So it was very much just an outsourced sales offering, mostly helping software companies with top of funnel, helping them find new opportunities, booking them into meetings, demos, things like that. Our first client, we got 2 at the beginning of the pandemic, probably in March 2020. It took us about 3-4 months to solidify the sales, build our own pipeline, get people in, having conversations and managing it ourselves. In that time, obviously, we had some, legacy customers from before, but we weren't making a lot of money, obviously. I think we were maybe making $4,000 or $5,000 between the two of us a month. So very much living on our credit card. But we got a couple customers in March 2020, which was great because we lost all our initial customers. All of the customers that we did have in the early days were on the events side, because obviously we had been focused a lot on the events, and pandemic hit, no more events. So we lost all those customers. So it kind of happened really quickly. 1 week we lost 3 customers. We freaked out for that week. And then the following week, we landed 2 new customers, software customers that were looking for just B2B lead gen for us to book demos for their software. So that was great. And Eric, my business partner, he worked on one of the customers, and then I worked on the other. And then that's, how we learned how to do outbound effectively, the tech stacks required. This is back in 2020. So everybody was at home doing nothing. So a lot of people picked up their phones. And it was challenging, I'd say, at the beginning because, one, not a lot of people wanted to spend money. So getting people to take demos during that time was pretty difficult. Though we did manage to hit our goals, just required a lot of effort in a lot of geographies too. And of course, at the beginning, when you start a company, you're the one doing the work for your customers. And then you're also the one that needs to figure out how to grow your business and find new customers. And then you also got to figure out the operations and how you're going to get paid and, how you're going to manage yourself and where you're going to work and all these things. And of course, the pandemic was just kicking off. So luckily, I think we turned the pandemic into, so it was probably it was the summer of 2020 when we started selling into the US market. I think early on when we had tried that in late 2019, we had some challenges because, people wanted us to meet in person. Obviously, we didn't have a huge budget to go travel and see people in person. So, and virtual sales calls, even like what we're doing right now, wasn't really a thing back in 2019. Crazy to think, but most business was done in person. So we were really limited to the market where we were. And when the pandemic happened, obviously no one even knew where you were or cared where you were. So that opened up borders for us, which was awesome. So we started selling into the US market. And in July 2020, we closed our first US deal. And that was really the gateway to this one that was our first customer that we were able to hire for. And then two, it was our first US customer, so a gateway to a new market. And that really opened the doors for the next kind of stage, which is where we really scaled. In the early days pandemic, for 2020 to 2021, we went from 0 people to about 30 people in that year. And then 2021 to 2022, we went to about 50 or 60. And then 2022 to 23, we went to about 100. So the pandemic was really great for us. Obviously, refined a ton of our methodology through scaling, but that was kind of, I guess, the early days.
Incredible. It took off with a bang. That's awesome. Yeah, it's like you become an overnight. It took you years to become an overnight sensation, exactly. Kind of thing. Right. All right. Well, looking at your business today, what does growth mean to you? Is it revenue, market share, team size, adding more team members, or something else?
Yeah, I think we're going through a bit of a fundamental change right now. So we've traditionally been an outsourced sales agency, lead generation company. However, we started to evolve probably in the last 6 months where we don't just provide bodies, we don't just provide leads. We come with systems and technology as well to help the overall infrastructure of our clients. We call it revenue infrastructure, is really the positioning of our company and where we're trying to grow into. And what that means is it's a combination of systems, people, and technology all together working to drive revenue outcomes, not just a portion of it. So where the previous model of our business used to be, we'll provide you leads or we'll provide you bodies to provide some function in the revenue department. So, customer success, account managers, account executives, inside sales, SDRs, BDRs, we would provide bodies to help with that. And then we manage them and we train them and hire them and fill all those gaps for you. Now we're doing that, but we're also doing more than that. So we'll come into your organization. We'll also help with the overall pipeline, the systems, the tools that your team uses, how we get from an initial lead to meeting and then all the way down to close. And we manage the entire infrastructure around it. And we help our clients with that infrastructure. And then on top of that, we developed our own proprietary technology that helps companies get unique insights from the market, but then it helps our team and their teams ramp a lot faster in market. So we get speed to success. So faster meetings that close more effectively is really our goal. So in this revenue infrastructure world, and why I'm telling you all this is because that's really our growth plans, is to build ourselves more into that space, help more organizations with not just leads, not just people, but what their entire revenue makeup looks like, and providing the entire system for them to not just find opportunities, but close them as well.
Incredible. Lots of businesses could use that. So in terms of generating leads, right? Things change. Number one, they change constantly, right? What works 2 days ago may no longer, work. That's a bit of an over exaggeration, but seriously, it's constantly changing. So especially since COVID. So what's working best for generating new leads right now for you? And how is that different?
I think when we started, we would find leads across a number of platforms, LinkedIn, email, cold calls, and everything in between. I think in the last year, we've really focused in, not that we don't do those other channels, we've really focused in and driven more success in just cold calls. Mostly because the AI has done a lot of things. One, it's made email really easy to do. So you can send out millions of emails every day across your ideal customer profile. And what that did for us on the email channel is it made a lot of noise. So our targets now are getting, hundreds and hundreds of emails a day even, and they're just ignoring mostly everything that's not internal to them. So because of that, we had to focus on channels where we were successful and had a competitive advantage. So we've been really focusing in on the calling aspect, which is what our team is trained on, what we deliver on. And we like the call method because, one, you get a chance to have a longer conversation with people. So one unique thing that we do is that we're not just trying to find opportunities. I mean, that is our core objective. But when we're talking on the phone, you get the opportunity to have a conversation with somebody and learn a little bit more about, what they're using today, what their inner workings are, what their budget cycles look like, what are the pain points they have at their organization. But through a call, you get a ton of useful information that you don't necessarily get on email. So we've really started leaning in more and more into that. And, we haven't really seen our connection rates shift all too much over the last, 5-6 years of doing this. I think we've really focused in on better and better data every year. We license a ton of databases. We have our own lead management system internally. So we're really focused on, good data in, which helps us get strong connection rates. And the phone for us has been really strong in our abilities to convert and get more information. And then also our technology is built all around the phone. So pulling insights from that on your prospect on how do we deliver faster and how we convert better for our clients all comes on the phone.
I love it. Totally agree. Those who are not constantly improving their skill on the phone, in my humble opinion, are going to get smoked.
That's right.
By those who are.
Whenever someone tells me the problem with leads, I just tell them you got to just pick up the phone.
And they'll give you a million reasons why they shouldn't. And I don't agree with 99% of them. So I love 100%. That. Yeah, I love that. That's what you're doing. But okay, so now, all right. So your cold calling is working. You've created a full ecosystem with phoning to get effective data, all the scripts, connections, all that good stuff. But what would you say is some of the challenges now, or that you foresee in terms of generating leads?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's constant challenges with generating leads, and you have to always reinvent. We're going deeper and deeper. Like, we expect connection rates to be a problem in the future as people potentially pick up their phone less. So we've been really focused on, converting on phone, ramping our reps faster, which is really what our software ends on. So, I mean, there's two ways you can make your team deliver more leads. One, you can have them do more dials, or two, you can help them convert more. So I don't envision a world where no one picks up the phone, at least in the next 5 to 10 years. So our goal as an organization is, if we know that connection rates are going to go down, how do we increase conversion rates? How do we help our reps convert more on the phone? Even though we haven't really seen a drastic change in connection rates, we're just trying to get more efficient when it comes to conversions. So the way we do that is we built a personality model that adjusts messaging depending on who our reps are talking to. So it gives them insights on their messaging and how to adjust that with who they're talking to. It gives them delivery recommendations. We have an agentic model that tells them exactly what they need to do next in order to book that next meeting. And that happens on every call and aggregates on the daily and the week. So it really helps them drive results a lot faster and getting to success. Even our best reps are still learning every day because things are changing so rapidly. So I think constant challenges, but if you continue to reinvent yourself, you continue to test and you continue to, push to figure out what success looks like, I think those are the companies that are going to be successful. At the end of the day, organizations in B2B, companies always have problems, and people and companies have solutions for those problems. So it's all about how the most efficient way to connect those buyers and sellers together. And I think it's through conversations and the human element. I don't see a world where, at least today, and in probably the next 5-10 years, where AI is doing all the selling and all the buying. I think there's going to be kind of like similar to what the pandemic. You'll see some companies unload their go-to-market teams in favor of AI. And I think in 12 months, they'll be hiring back people. Ideally, they'll be hiring back teams that have optimized for a human plus AI element, where they're making their salespeople more efficient, more effective with AI versus trying to lean in specifically just to AI. Because the thing is, as we know in life and in business, if there's something that's easy, everybody will do it. And then that channel will be useless. And it's kind of like what you're seeing in email and even LinkedIn to a degree.
Absolutely. I'm not going to name names, but one of the big 4 consultancy firms in the past couple months, they laid off about 66,000 of their employees and replaced them with AI. And they're saying that about per one consultant, they have about 20 plus thousand AI bots. But, again, this is a bit off topic specifically, but there's people will have panic. Oh no, we're all going to be replaced by AI. But I bet you give that project a couple months, just give it a couple months, and we'll see just exactly, like you said, how many humans they're going to hire back.
Absolutely. I think it reminds me of early days pandemic when there was a lot of layoffs. I think companies get bloated in times and they disguise layoffs in innovation, or they take an opportunity like a pandemic or an AI trend to lay off some of the bloat, and then they try to hire back. And I think that's just a general life cycle of business. But to your point, it'll normalize quickly, and revenue will suffer, and they'll have to bring things back.
True. All right. Speaking of which, every business has a messy middle. Nothing's perfect. Can you share a time when a really good deal or a hire you were for sure was going to work out, or a strategy didn't go as planned, and what did you learn from it?
Our messiest middle was, we were scaling really quickly. 2023, we broke 100 employees. Everything was looking great. And then there was kind of that SaaS cliff that happened. And not only that, we also had so at that time, people were just kind of shielding budgets a little bit more than they had previously. And then what that did is it just made sales cycles a little bit longer. And we had a client that we were doing a expansion project for into the US market. And, we had built a 20-person team for them. We didn't know that they basically went bankrupt and had overextended themselves. And, they had always paid their bills. So we gave them some grace. They told us they were going to pay their bills, and then 1 month they didn't. And I'm sure you can understand, on a 20-person team, that's a lot of salary for us to take as a company. And because of that, we had a cash flow issue that we had to deal with kind of immediately. So we had to reallocate what we could on the team. We had to go through a couple rounds of layoffs because we had scaled so quickly. We also had, a number of, people in, management that we had promoted into to try to keep everything moving quickly. And then when things kind of went, standstill, or we lost a big revenue, or we had a big revenue gap and cash flow gap, that was a pretty rough time. Obviously, no one wants to do layoffs, especially when your, previous 3-4 years had been nothing but, rocket ship growth. So I didn't really know how to handle that. And I waited to the last possible moment. And in retrospect now, knowing what I know, I wouldn't have let it go as far as I did. But, you're always hoping at that moment that, they do pay, or, that things do turn around for them. But obviously it never did. And the company's not around anymore. And that created some big gaps. But I always call it kind of the blessing in disguise for us. Not that I liked laying people off. Of course I didn't. And that was really rough for me. I sat in on probably the majority of those layoff conversations. And it was a really rough time for me. And of course, all of our employees, and even the ones that were laid off, it created a big gap. But what it did do is it helped us, restructure the business and look at it from an efficiency standpoint. When you scale really quickly and you have a lot of revenue, that covers up a lot of operational issues. And when the revenue is not there anymore, those operational issues become massive. So we had to do a lot of cleanup. And I think for me, just, as a leader, it really forced me to think through a lot of the problems that I had probably been putting on the back burner, because when you have revenue and profit coming in, you don't have to think through the operational issues. You're not going to. But when you do, I think there was, probably wanted to quit every day. A very difficult time to manage, but it taught us how to become efficient. It taught us, true ownership in roles. It taught us, what the management layer needed to look like, what our executive layer needed to look like, how the structures of the organization worked, how we functioned as departments, and how we talked to each other and worked together. So I think I call it a blessing in disguise, in the fact that it taught me a lot about how businesses need to be run, or should be run. And a lot of the things should have happened, before that. But, when you're growing quickly, you want to, especially as the first time, it was I had been a founder before on a kind of solo business, but this is my first time managing a team of that size, for sure. In any business that I had been on. So when things are great, you want to keep it going. You want to give people promotions. You want to give people money, and you want to make everybody's life great. And, that feels awesome. So you don't want to think about efficiency. You don't want to lay people off when you don't have to. You don't. So, you keep things going longer than you should. And that's why like the messy middle sucks. But if you can get out of it, your business usually becomes a lot better. And you learn a lot of things, or at least I did, to be a leader.
Amazing.
That's
Hindsight
right. Yeah.
is always 2020, right? All right. Amazing. Glad that you were able to bounce back even better than before. So as you look ahead for the next year to 2 years, what is the biggest growth opportunity that you see, as well as the biggest risk, realistically?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're one and the same. You know, our pivot to this revenue infrastructure platform, can either be really strong or, maybe it won't work. In the organizations where we play an embedded role in the revenue teams, we provide really good ROI and really strong growth for them, which is why I think that is the place that we need to play as an organization. Though, every company has their own challenges. Every sales team has their own challenges. So you never know what the risks are. But I think as AI becomes more of a thing, and the world of sales becomes more difficult every day, I think an organization like ours that is in the trenches every day, learning across industries and businesses and personas and scripts, and we built technology that helps us be better. I think that we're going to create a competitive advantage in our abilities to sell. And ideally, the vision is that companies of the future don't need to have internal revenue teams. They can bring us in as a platform that sits within their organization that manages that portion of their company for them. Similar to bringing on a CRM that would manage all of your sales contacts and activities, or an ERP that would manage the operations of your company. We very much see revenue infrastructure as a platform that can help people with closing more business.
Exciting. Lots of opportunity. Okay, so in my ears perk up, especially when I hear cold calling, because I'm a huge proponent on that. And you have to be effective in sales to do that. At least some level of sales effectiveness to do that. So and actually get results. So how do you approach sales effectiveness training and development for both yourself and for your sales team?
Yeah, I mean, early days in our organization, we realized that when, everybody who works in sales for any length of time would know that, turnover is a big problem in sales for a number of reasons. But we always wanted to deliver for our client partners. So it was important for us that our training and development program was really strong. And because of that, we invested a ton of money, energy, and time into making sure that our training and development was able to take new employees and get them ramped up as quickly as we can, and build their skills long term. And we continue to invest in that, and our software actually helps us continue on that path. So today, we can take someone in two weeks or so of classroom learning, and then we put them on an account, fake account that's not our clients, to get the jitters out. And they can usually book within that first week, just with our training and our technology helping them. I think it's all about being contextual and helping someone learn as quickly as they can with how they know they need to learn. So our big goal with Pitch Pilot is learning how our recommendations from the AI agent deliver success. So our big focus is understanding how we can deliver better recommendations, so the sales reps ramp faster and faster. And the recommendations that we deliver today are based in our best practices, but also in actual in-market calls that the rep does. So basically, they're doing a call, they're getting recommendations on how to improve, and they're actioning that next. And then we're learning how well our recommendation engine's working, so we can provide better and better recommendations over time. And our goal is like to help them learn faster in market. For us, like role playing is an element that we do in the first couple of weeks, but after you get into market, I always joke with, well, I always use the Mike Tyson analogy, I guess. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and for me, that's like the difference between role playing and actually doing in market calls. The difference is, you can role play all day, and we do a number of role playing in our training. But when there's no skin in the game, when you're not talking to a real human being, you don't have that edge, and the edge can either make or break you. So you need to learn in market how to improve. So for us, we really focused in on how do we help our reps improve in market and fast. Generally we can do it after every call. And really that's going to be our continued focus is ramping our reps as quickly as we can. We don't hire necessarily people with any experience. In fact, we love hiring just the right personality that we can train into be the right salesperson. Because we know that our methodology works, we know that our training works, we know that we can deliver the right people on the other end if they go through our program, as long as they have the right personality type and aptitude to be able to fit in the model.
Exciting. All right. So, you kind of have a good idea of what you're looking for and how to set them up for success. But what are some of the greatest challenges that you've experienced so far when hiring salespeople?
We still run into a portion, 20, 25% of people that, make it through our hiring, and our program's pretty intensive. We do personnel and aptitude testing. We do a screener, we do an interview, we even do a cold call test all before they're even hired. And then we still have a portion, probably like 25% or so of people that make it into our training program from the recruiting process who just don't make it out. For a number of reasons. One, they figure out that sales just isn't for them. Or two, they can't deliver, or they can't, work within the model. Or, three, sometimes people just aren't the right fit. But I mean, one of the benefits to working with us is we help train all that out, and we take on that risk first, so that by the time a rep is actually getting on one of our client partners, they're ready to go and they're already trained and they want to be a salesperson. But I mean, the risk continues to be, and the challenge continues to be hiring the right people and training them through the program and getting them to success as fast as we can. And it's never a job that's never done.
Totally. And the thing about hiring salespeople is they can be one of the hardest to hire because they have great resumes. They look even better in an interview. But when the rubber hits the asphalt and they're actually required to go out and do sales behavior, which can be a bit uncomfortable at first, that's when a lot of times they fall off. So I'm assuming that these aptitude personality screening tests not only determine, who they are, but what they're going to do in a specific scenario, predicting how they would behave in a scenario that hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah. And there's, as an organization at our scale, we have more requirements than, just being a good salesperson. One, you need to work on a team effectively. Two, you need to work within an organization that has many layers of management. Three, you need to operate, in a way that is effective, but also you need to be able to do admin work like reporting. Obviously, we have reporting needs that we have to do across the organization, so our management team can manage the team at scale. So we have really stringent KPIs, we have really stringent reporting structures, and that helps us run quickly, making sure that the team is delivering where they need to be delivering. So it's not just enough that you need to be a good salesperson. You also need to have a level of ownership in your work and make sure that you are presenting that in a way that that works, that looks good. And we still have people that get through, and they are good salespeople, but they don't fit the model of, and they don't want to do the reporting, they don't want to do the admin work. And as you run your own business, you can't skip the admin work, and even though we want to, and that just doesn't fit our model. And as like when you move up to manager and executive, or you become an entrepreneur, like reporting and it is a really important function of running a business effectively. So it tends to be like a big hang up with people, because maybe it's not easy to understand the impact of it, but it's crucially important for us as a business. And some people just don't want, and that's fine. Not, you don't have to report at all organizations, though I always am a proponent that every organization should have strong KPIs and goals in reporting, though I don't run every organization.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. And not to mention, they have to be willing to actually take direction, right? Some people just, no matter how much evidence, how much facts, proof, that this technique works, sometimes they just refuse to take direction from anyone but themselves. It's a small proportion of people, but it's there. And there are assessments that, like, you're not going to find, no one's going to come up to you and tell you that. Like, that's why these assessments that you're running, and we use assessments fully, it's how could you possibly know someone without data? You're just basically feeling them out. So that's why, kind of what you're saying, and I agree, these data-driven processes and tools get confirmation of what you may suspect or not know, so that you don't have to wait till you gave them, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 salary and they produce nothing. Like, if you want to know this beforehand, before you before you spend a scintilla of time coaching, training, supervising someone that just is not willing to learn, right? And it happens. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a anxiety. It's a common anxiety. There's about 12 different forms of sales anxiety, sales reluctance anxieties, which is the reluctance to do outbound sales. And this one, it's called oppositional reflex. And you can't coach that out. You just can't. It's a small portion of society, of people, but they're there. And you could really get in a trap of, by the time you have to offboard them, you could be dealing with legal labor issues. So it's better just to use assessments right up front. Like, don't get cute.
Coachability is definitely one of the attributes we try to figure out in our assessments. I'm a big proponent of them. I worked at Procter and Gamble, and to get a job there, you have to do a number of assessments, and I think it just helps understand. Anybody can be a good interviewee. You can present yourself well. You can, salespeople are probably the worst for this too, because they're really good at selling themselves. But I think if you don't do those assessments to understand who they are as a personality type, who they are, do they have the aptitude to do the job? You can uncover a ton of things quickly. And then I'm a big proponent of doing some level of tactical work or some on the job, case study, or for us, especially with, new reps, it's a cold call to see if they're going to do it. Because some people self-select out at that point, which is great, because you don't want to have them start day one on a cold calling and realize at that point that they can't get to it. And so we pulled that out in the interview process. And then also it helps us understand what the baseline is. Are the problems that they have with cold calling in that initial cold call screener, are they coachable? If they are, great. Then we generally hire them, because, we're not expecting people to be the best. We're expecting them to be coachable. But if they're not, and the things that they do in the cold call are not, and sometimes we even do a coaching in the cold call and have them do the second one to see if they can put those things into effect. Because like you said, coachability is so important in sales, and especially in our model when we're moving quickly and we're scaling teams quickly. We need people that can learn on the job quickly.
Absolutely. It's not just learning, it's learning and applying, learning and applying. Like if you have to wait until someone learns the whole process, you'd be waiting for a long time. So that's why we love AI, because you can get instant feedback, instant coaching. You don't have to wait to go through a full course or a period of study. You get it instantly, and
That's
the next
right.
call you can apply it right away. Yeah. So people that aren't using this technology, it's just you got it. Cool. All right. So thinking about your own leadership, right? What's been the hardest adjustment that you've had to make as the company has grown?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think I've had to fundamentally reinvent myself multiple times over the last 6-7 years. When you start your company, you're doing a lot of the work yourself. So it's very much how well you can be as an individual contributor, and can you succeed in that role enough where you're delivering success, you're keeping clients, and you're able to find new ones. But as you grow, you can't do all the work yourself. So you have to start hiring people to do the work. And then you need to become a manager. Um, and then I find, after you scale from there, you have a number of managers and you can't manage the managers. So you need to get an executive layer. And, each time you have to figure out how to let go of a little bit more and trust a little bit more of the team. And, sometimes when I went from individual contributor to manager, you have to be comfortable that, 80% at scale is probably better than 100% with one individual. And then figure out the systems that you can put into place to bridge the gap from 80 to 100. And I think we've done a really good job at that. Because now my team does the job that I used to do 100 times better than I could do it. And that's really been my focus, is each time just reinventing myself and becoming a good manager, becoming a good executive, now becoming a good leader. I'm actually going through a reinvention myself right now, where I'm pulling myself even more out of the business to make sure we can focus on strategic change, which is kind of the business shift to this revenue infrastructure, focus more on, technology and AI and how it integrates with human beings. So that's a huge project and a big strategic one that requires focus. And I can't focus on that if I'm constantly solving individual client issues or individual employee issues. So I very much have to trust my team to do those. And, as as an entrepreneur, it's hard to let go. So I think the reinvention of yourself is crucially important.
Absolutely. It never stops, right? All right. So, well, this has been very insightful. So I do have one last closing question, which is really important. And I hope that you are answering candidly, but the more candid, the better. If you could give one piece of advice to an Ontario business owner who's hit a growth ceiling, what would it be?
Oh, I mean, that goes with the last question. The ceiling is not related to your company. The ceiling is related to you, the entrepreneur, the CEO, the executive team that's running the company. And I found that for myself. We got stuck at 3 million, 5 million, and 10 million. And each time it had everything to do with me as an individual, not moving myself up, upskilling myself, becoming a different leader at those periods that the company needed in order for us to grow. So, like I mentioned before, if you're doing all the work, you can't focus on the strategy to move the business forwards. You can't get past the hump. So you need to think about how you remove yourself from the business, enable your team to deliver success, build the systems for success. And the more effectively you can do that, the more effectively you can let go, the bigger challenges you can take on as a leader, and the more you'll be able to grow. And there's going to be, as you're going through that metamorphosis to change yourself almost fundamentally, because right now I've changed my entire calendar around who I speak to on a daily basis, what meetings I take, what my time blocks look like. how I manage myself in the day, when I work out, the foods that I eat, everything goes into, evolving yourself to that next stage of a leader. And if you find yourself at a growth plateau, I've found, at least in my own career, as that plateau has always been related to me. And the second I can unlock, myself and what I need to do to be the next stage leader, it's enabled my team to unlock for themselves and lead better. But it's freed up time for us to think through bigger issues, bigger opportunities, manage bigger projects, and growth continues to scale. And the watch out though is there's going to be a period in transition where you probably lose some revenue or lose some employees. So you're going to have a dip before you can grow back, and you have to be comfortable with that because the next stage is going to be better. I mean, it will be different, not necessarily better. It'll be different. And if you can do that bridge and get to that next stage effectively, then that's the next scale, next stage of growth. But you kind of need to take a hit. Like for us right now, we're moving into the infrastructure world, and that means we have some, not so great fit customers that will cycle out naturally, and we'll replace them with customers who want more of our infrastructure model. And for us, that's a bigger opportunity for us because it's a bigger revenue. It's more aligned to outcomes for our clients, and the ROI makes more sense. And because of that, companies will spend more with us, as we've seen. So, but that does mean that we'll have dips here and there of old customers in the old model, and that's okay. And we'll be okay with that. Because we know that the future customers are bigger and more aligned with our vision for the future. And that's what you need to do. As a leader, you need to think through what does the next evolution of your business look like? Move there, change yourself to that leader, and leave everything behind in the old model and be comfortable that you'll have some losses. Because the watch out is you lose a little bit, you start to freak out, and then you start filling those with bad fit clients that don't fit your new world. And you're constantly in that hamster wheel of, why am I not growing? Why can't I get better? And it's fundamentally, it's always been me and it's not like a day where I just wake up and I change. It usually is a process over, a number of months where I finally get so fed up and I know that we've plateaued. And you'll know that you're plateaued probably because you've been 6 to 12 months at the same revenue band and you can't figure out how to get to the next level. And every time that happens in our business, I know that I need to go away, take some time, rethink through the process, rethink through our next stage, take the data of where the world is going and try to align our business with that, and then fundamentally reinvent ourselves.
Love it. Yeah. And they say some of the greatest leaders, they're not thinking 1 or 2 or 3 years ahead. They're thinking 10 years ahead. So if you're thinking 10 years ahead and you have a bit of a hiccup, a couple bad months, maybe even a bad year, if you're thinking 10 years ahead, does it really matter? Right? Does it really matter that one couple months? Probably not.
Absolutely.
So I totally agree with you. All right. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Got tons of amazing insight. And we really appreciate you being a guest here, Paul. I'm excited to share this.
Great. Thank you for having me.
World.
It was awesome to speak today.